Fantastic. Welcome to Demasked. My name is Fresman, and today I'm joined by Madam Raven. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Despite technical difficulties, I think this is going just fine.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Like I say, I have a crappy Chromebook, so it does not work
Oh,
intuitively. So,
it's all good. I so before our second, restart here, we were discussing about authors' predictions of the future,
mhm.
and I found a couple years ago, I found a book on my local train
Oh,
that somebody had left behind, but it's a fascinating book. It's called My Name Is Legion by Roger Zelazny. But
huh.
I something one of my favorite things about old science fiction is not so much the prediction of what we might have in the future, but the year that they predict these things will happen.
Oh, right, right. Yeah.
Well, because like as an example, the movie Blade Runner with Harrison Ford happened about already happened about 3 years ago. That movie takes
Right.
place in 2019.
Right, right. And what was it that was supposed to happen this year? Oh, Soylent Green was supposed to take place this year. So yeah,
Yep.
it's funny. And in some ironic and tragic way, a lot of the things they got right. I mean, we do kind of a lot of the cities do look very cyberpunk, and there is
Mm.
a great dystopian um, feel to the entire world right now, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Well, it was in Roger Zelazny's book. It's like, oh, we have telepathic dolphins, and we're using nuclear bombs to create artificial islands in the far off year of 2007.
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. And 2001, we're nowhere near that. So yeah. Although they did get Hal interestingly correct, and there is that fear of the artificial intelligence outmaneuvering and outmastering us that we still share. So I think science fiction is interesting in that way. Is it's like,
Mm.
how do they imagine the future? What problems do they imagine we have? And how close they get to it. uh,
I I find it stellar that we have like near Star Trek esque technology nowadays, but nobody seems to care.
right, right. Everybody just kind of takes it in stride and just kind of like, you know, almost like it's always been there. And yeah, it was like 3 phones ago. I had a BlackBerry that had a real potato camera, and you really couldn't do much on it. And now uh, you can do everything from your phone. It's it's crazy. It's crazy, and where it will go with Elon Musk wanting to put you know music players in our head and whatever else. It's it'll be interesting where it goes, and terrifying at the same time.
Well, I remember a moment in, I want to say, middle school where like the sort of the like the iPod Touch had come out,
Oh, uh-huh.
and I remember asking a friend, like, "What do you mean you can watch YouTube videos on your phone?
Right.
You're crazy.
Right.
That's nuts."
That's yeah, yeah. It's absolutely crazy. I remember, gosh, that was what, 2007-ish, that one of the actors read their acceptance speech from their BlackBerry, and everybody went crazy over that. And now it's just like everybody everybody has everything on their life is on that phone, and it would be weird if they didn't. So, yeah. It's crazy. So, absolutely. So yeah, there's a lot of public domain stories out there
Mm.
that are opening up and coming up that are, you know, really interesting to pick out and read. So, yeah. Yep, it's interesting. It's interesting. So, yeah, my channel's kind of been all over the place in the 5 years, that I've been doing this, but
Mm.
it's fun. It's fun.
So where do you see your channel going from here? Are you gonna keep doing the horror narrations, or sort of kind of slowly evolve into something larger? What do you think?
I've thought a lot about that. And I'm not sure where I will take it. I think I'll probably just take it from, what I feel like at the moment, because the whole point of it really is for my enjoyment. I'm super glad that I have, a couple dozen people listening to me, and almost 5,000 people subscribed. But in the end, I like reading stories that appeal to me, and they might be all over the place: mysteries, thrillers, horror, mythology. Uh, Supernatural really interests me. I'm not really big on the gore, but the
Mm.
supernatural or the mystery really just kind of speaks to me. So I grew up in a haunted house, which is probably why. So yeah, that just kind of interests me, and I'll just keep reading what I like, and I guess if people like it, they'll watch. There's not much else I could do. I tried to work the algorithm and all of the little tricks you do, and it took the enjoyment out of it for me, really. Too much work, and quite honestly, I wasn't getting the payback by the numbers of viewers that other people have gotten. So I thought, well,
Mm.
this is mine. This is what I like to do. I'll just do it for me, because there's no way I'm going to get bigger. So just doing it for me is, and the sweet subscribers I've got. I've got such an awesome group that listen, and I really do appreciate them. And some of them, they've stuck by me for 5 years, so
Mm.
that's really worth something.
Well, there's a point that you mentioned earlier that I can't seem to move past. Is you said you grew up in a haunted house?
Yeah, I did.
I say that's an odd fact to just kind of drop there and keep going.
Yeah, I grew up in, like, oh, an old farmhouse. It was built by the railroads way back when, and
Mm.
yeah, there's some interesting, very interesting things that happen there. Almost every night you'd hear somebody walk up the stairs, and my room was at the top of the stairs. There was no door between the stairway, so you could see, hear the footsteps coming up and see no one coming up, and it was, I don't know, it was weird and kind of comforting. My great uncle had owned it a number of years ago, so I had it in my mind that this was a family member just checking to make sure everybody was okay. My brother called him the stair monster, and I don't think he liked that very much. Um, this brother actually got an ornament, just a little resin ornament, thrown at him from across the room. He was trying to sneak off with my other brother's video game. So
Uh.
I think that was the reason. It's just like, hey, don't come in here and do that. But there's been, my mother saw the hat ghost, the big hat ghost, the one with the cowboy hat and the duster. Um, my dad has seen a short man almost walked right into him and then he disappeared.
Hmm.
Outside their kitchen is like a busy sidewalk for shadow people. Even the dog will bark at him, and there's no way that the shadow could be cast because there's nobody around for one thing to cast it. But there's just story after story there, and yeah, it was. I grew up in a haunted house, and so that's always been of interest to me. I was a ghost hunter. I went ghost hunting for a number of years, and that was a lot of fun and just wild and crazy. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's always a big interest of me.
Interesting.
So yeah, yep.
I huh.
My bro-
I've so when well whenever I hear ghosts in the house or whatnot, I always imagine your sort of your classic sheet with the two eye holes cut out,
right, right.
and I desperately so want to make a horror movie about that.
Yeah, yeah. That would be
Just
interesting. That would be interesting. Yeah. That
there's
would be
something in
good.
the
You know,
house.
they could have the people figuring, oh, it's somebody trying to scare us, and then it turns out not to be somebody trying to scare them, but a real ghost. That would be really cool.
They pull the sheet off and there's just nothing there.
So yeah, um, I that's always been a part of my world, I guess. I
Hmm.
really enjoyed when I did go ghost hunting. Um, just some neat places. The group I was with, they had some awesome connections, and it was a lot of fun. We just kind of, all of us just kind of got busy though, and it just kind of fell by the wayside. But
Hmm.
yeah, that was something I've just kind of accepted when you see it so much, which kind of,
Have you
led me also to, doing the channel and everything around that. So,
hmm. Have you considered doing ghost hunting content on your channel?
I have. I've
Oh.
actually, last fall, I spoke at a supernatural conference and I put that up on there. So you actually get to see me, unfortunately. But, and yeah, I've told some stories there. I've told some other stories on my channel and that sort of thing. So,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. I might do some more. That's something I could do. Um, my
I
brother.
mean,
No, go ahead.
I'm, I was gonna say, have you considered doing the, finding a location, going and like spending an evening there, trying to get, footage?
Right. I have, and I should. When my parents were well enough that they were still going on vacation, this was a few years ago, I actually set up some ghost cameras in their house. But I don't think anybody found anything on them. So,
Hmm.
unfortunately, my youngest brother, he's got Williams syndrome, and he went through every second of it and listened very closely for any whisper, and he didn't find too much. So, but yeah, it would be fun to go ghost hunting and do a live stream. I might do that in the future. Talk to some friends and see when they're going out and go with them. That would be fun.
Hmm.
That would be fun.
Like man, I've tried to watch ghost hunting shows, Ghost Adventures and all those,
Right, right.
and I I forget what the process is. Is it EVP?
Uh huh. Yeah, electronic voice phenomenon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem I have, at least with those shows, is that it doesn't feel like the hosts or the guys doing the show give the ghost enough time to like actually give any evidence.
Right, right. And I think that's probably due to editing because when you're doing it in real life, you do pause and you wait a few minutes and then you say something else. So
Hmm.
they probably do that, but if you're waiting, 3 minutes on a TV show, people are gonna change the station, I imagine. So they edit that out. But yeah, yeah. Um, EVPs are really interesting. and really wild when you catch them.
Hmm.
There was a place we used to go. It was in a town called, well, a city called Ogden, Utah, and it was an old building where they'd bring the cattle in and sell them and all that sort of stuff. And it's I love that place, and I think they've torn it down. But
Hmm.
oh, there was a triple homicide, three suicides, and at least one natural death there.
Oh,
And
jeez.
that place was just insane. Um, you can find an EVP from it. That was on Coast to Coast AM. That nobody was actually in the building when it happened, and you can hear splashing, and you hear a boy drown. And they didn't know anything
Huh.
about that, but they went and they looked it up, and apparently a boy had been pulled into the culvert underneath the building and drowned there
Oh.
in the 50s. And that was after the fact. So, you find stuff like that, and then you find the history to back it up, and you're just like, oh, wow, that's awesome. So, it is. It's a really fun hobby. It can be expensive, but one of the guy that was kind of the head, he didn't want to be in charge, but everybody said he was in charge, so he was forced to be. But he
Hmm.
always compared it to bad fishing. You could go all weekend and never get anything,
Yep.
or you get one good EVP or whatever it is. But yeah, you have to have patience. But it's interesting. It's fun.
I I haven't tried it myself. I know that my mom has. My mom's gone ghost hunting,
Oh yeah.
but personally, I'm terrified of the dark. So
Oh yeah.
I'm good. I'm good. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
That sometimes it's very peaceful going, and it's quiet and it's dark, and my kids were little when I did it, so it was peaceful and a little bit of peace and quiet. But yeah, it can be terrifying. It can be terrifying.
Well, well, you said it's peaceful, quiet, and dark, and I'm just sitting here shaking my head. I'm like, it's too quiet. I don't like it. No.
Yeah, I remember one time we were watching a domestic fight across the street, and I'm sitting here. We're all looking out the
Jeez.
windows, and I'm yelling at each other, and I'm sitting here thinking, I wonder if the ghosts sit and watch them fight when we're not here. But who knows? Who knows? But yeah, it's crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Um, yeah, and you got to be careful not to bring something home with you. I was talking. Somebody else was live streaming, and I told the story in the chat, but I did bring something home one time. I was careless, and this
Hmm.
was a very ornery old man that lived in the bottom of a train station. Or anyway, that was his domain after in the afterlife.
Hmm.
And he followed me home, and he would tap on my legs when I was asleep. He did it to my husband too. And when you were showering, he would knock on the door, which
Hmm.
was terrifying when nobody else was home, um, completely. And he scared my daughter, who was only about 8 at the time. As she woke up, and he was like inches, his face was inches from hers. So, I told him he had to go back quite sternly. But yeah, you got to be careful about that stuff. You don't want anything attaching to you. And that can happen. So,
Well, so personally, I'm not a big, believer in ghosts.
uh-huh.
But I'm willing to,
Right.
be open to the idea.
Right. And you have to take a step back and say, okay, you have this activity.
Hmm.
Is it someone who's passed on? Is it something else? Is there some, weird glitch in the matrix? Is it another dimension that's intersecting with ours. You can't, I mean, we call them ghosts, sure, but
Hmm.
you can't say for sure that's what they are. Um,
Yeah.
they could be what's called jinn or elementals or demons or all you can say is okay, this happened and I don't have an explanation for it.
Hmm.
So yeah, um, whatever it may be. I mean, when you look at UFOs, the government's come out and said, yes, they're real. Okay. You have to look at that and, go from there. And a lot of people have to adjust their thinking that was, oh, well, it's just this or just that. And okay, well, maybe they're real. And I think that can go for any um, paranormal subject, really. There's nothing that's supernatural. Everything's natural. We just don't have an explanation for it yet.
Hmm.
It that hasn't been discovered, and maybe some things in science will have to back up and say, okay, we were wrong about this theory. Maybe it's something else. Let's take this new information and work out another theory. So, I people that just get too smug about things being or not being real, um, you have to have an open mind,
Hmm.
but still be um, skeptical. Still be reasonable. Still say, okay, this is what we got. It may be a ghost of someone who passed on, or it could be something else.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's my take on the whole thing. Is there's no supernatural, just things we don't know about yet. We can't explain
Yeah.
yet. So,
Well, I had a bit of a weird run in a couple months ago here where I it it's one of those things where like you know how in a lot of ghost hunter shows they'll try to or at least try to explain certain like sounds.
mm-hmm.
You know, something fell over, like one of the camera crew bumped into something, that sort of thing.
Right, right, right.
Well, I had an experience that I know for a fact I can't explain.
Uh huh.
I we me and my parents were cleaning out my grandma's house because she had just recently passed away and all this, and we had a strange relationship, so it was just kind of get all the furniture out of the house, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
And I was in the downstairs. The basement has sort of like a bathroom slash mud room, like kind of leads out into the backyard as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in there with the door closed, and I'm washing my hands, and I hear like knocking at the door, like somebody's checking to see if somebody's in the bathroom.
Uh huh.
And I go, "Hello, what's up?" And because I assume it's my dad or somebody, because we had a realtor there too, so there's four people total in the house. Well, I walk out of I within the span of about 10 seconds, walk over and open the door, and there's nobody downstairs with me. The other three people are upstairs in the kitchen,
Oh wow. Yeah.
and so I stood there for a minute, and I even like, well, maybe because like the garage is open and all this, I'm like, well, maybe somebody wandered in, and so I'm checking the garage, and nobody's outside, nothing. Just, mm.
There we go. Now you're
There
back.
we are. Yeah, say I could hear you perfectly the whole time.
Oh, that's crazy. Oh gosh. I've got to get a hold of my cell phone service cuz my data has not been working, but that's total other story right there. But anyway, sorry about that.
Oh, it's all good. I made a note to possibly cut out the that interruption there.
Right, right.
But yeah, no, it like I mentioned before that like it wasn't like a somebody pounding on the door. It's just like a like you're knocking on somebody's front door.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. That's Yeah, it's really weird because something happens like that and life is just normal and you're like, did that really just happen?
Mm.
And I don't know if that was your reaction, but that's kind of how I feel when something like that happens.
Well, my grandma, she was, how do I word it? I I I have a habit of making jokes out of tense situations,
Uh huh.
and so my grandma was she was a kind person, but was very judgy,
Oh, uh huh. Yeah.
like just really about anything,
Mm hmm. That
and so
tends to go with that generation. I don't want to make
yeah.
sweeping statements, but yeah.
well, I'd walked upstairs and I didn't mention it to my dad or the realtor or anything. I just kind of walked up there and I'm like, "Yep, everybody's up here." I'm like, I hope it wasn't my grandma judging me while I'm washing my hands."
There you go. Oh, that's funny.
I just yeah, interesting times.
Yep. Yep. For certain. For certain.
Well, a buddy of mine, he used to be he once in a while he'll argue for like the devil's advocate,
Mm-hmm.
but he even if he doesn't believe it, but he used to we used to get in these long-winded arguments about like, do you really exist, that sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
And my argument is yes, absolutely, because I'm suffering too much for this to be a simulation.
Right, right. I would hate for it to be a simulation and that, everything we go for is for nothing. We're just NPCs out there banging our heads against the wall. uh,
I, well, well, that and he tried to relay it to like video games because there's a phenomenon known as culling
mm,
in games, which is if you can't see it in the game, it kind of deloads
uh-huh. Yeah,
to
yeah.
save on resources. But I told him like that doesn't happen here in real life because even if I leave my bedroom, my cat's still in my room.
Right, right.
He's still there.
So if it is a simulation, it's taking an enormous amount of resources to keep everything real.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. That's hopeful. That's hopeful. Oh. But then again, you come in and things are moved or something's changed and you're like, why
Oh no,
is
that
that?
uh, oh no, that was my ex that would move stuff.
Oh. Oh,
Yeah,
great.
I'd come home from work. She's like, "Oh, I rearranged the room." I'm like, "Cool. I don't know where anything is now."
Yeah.
Awesome. So neat.
Yep. Yep. That sounds like my husband. He wants to clean. He wants to spring clean. And I know that means throwing away a lot of my stuff. So, yeah, I'm not too keen on that.
I well, like my thing is like if I leave something someplace, that's where it should be.
Uh huh. Yeah.
and I would go to work, come home, and like my entire desk has been cleaned off. And while it is a nice gesture, I kind of needed like five or six things on my desk.
Right. Right. That's me. Is it's clutter, but I know where everything is unless somebody moves it. So, yeah, I
Oh,
get that. I get that.
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, well, I just like how do I word it? I learned very recently that I have a photographic memory.
Oh, that's cool.
It's fine.
That's fine. Huh?
Well, because like I'll be like, this happened recently. I was hanging out with my cousins, and one of them was like, "Yeah, what about this one item from a video game?" And I could almost feel my eyes roll into the back of my head.
Oh,
I was like, "Yes, this weapon was featured in this game, and this game."
oh, that that's that's a cool skill to have.
it it would be great if it were voluntary, but it just
Right.
kind of happens.
That sounds like. Did you ever watch Third Rock from the Sun?
I've seen parts of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of when Harry would be be the radio and he'd just all of a sudden go into, this mode where he's repeating the instructions he got and everything. It kind of reminds me like that, like, your Google search.
Well, I did that yesterday with I'm I'm standing there and I was helping my grandparents yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and I'm saying that my grandpa takes a phone call and it's for like a doctor's appointment, but I can hear the person on the other end because it's on speakerphone.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, yeah, we need you to come in on this day, this time, at this office, and at at like 9 in the morning.
Uh-huh.
And my grandpa goes, sure, I'll go write that down. And it's like an hour or two passes, and he hasn't written it down, and I know for a fact he hasn't written it down. And I'm like, hey, did you write down that doctor's appointment? He goes, oh yeah, when was it? I'm like, this day, this time, this office with this doctor, like at 9 a.m. And he's like, are you sure? I'm like, yes, it's stuck in there now.
Oh, that's helpful. That's helpful. I'm my mind. I've been under a lot of stress the last while. My mom's on hospice and my dad's
Mm,
difficult. Anyway,
yeah.
that kind of stress, it kind of causes your memory to fail a little bit. And so, yeah, I've been just the opposite of that. I can't remember from one minute to another sometimes. But yeah, it's interesting. I that's a pretty cool gift you've got.
Yes, gift. I I so I'm a big nerd, a big comic book nerd,
Oh
and
yeah.
I almost got into an argument in a comic book shop with somebody because they were wrong, and I couldn't believe how wrong they were being, and but thankfully I was just like, thankfully I was able to stop myself. I'm like, I don't have the time to.
Right. This is going to be a discussion an hour in the making if I
Yeah, I'm staring down at a pile of comic books. I'm like, keep your mouth shut. I'm like, don't say a word. just just buy the comic books. Get out of here.
comic book places and the people in them are very specific on details. So yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
If you correct someone, I'm sure they would not appreciate it.
Well, what's worse, at least to me, what was worse is that the person who was wrong was working there, and they were wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they're behind the counter, and I'm just like, God,
How
you're
can
wrong.
you not know this?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, ooh, it's fine, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah. You can walk away. It's okay. You
Yeah.
really, really want to correct them, but
Oh, gee. Like it, yeah. Well, like with my some of my friends, like, well, you've you might have. I think you might know each other. Lady Spukaria.
oh yes, she's such a sweetheart. She's awesome.
I I wholeheartedly agree, and I feel so bad for her whenever me and her are on a call.
Oh yeah.
Well, like there was a day where me and her were playing a game, and I for some reason just had this movie in my head from like 30 years ago,
Uh huh.
and and I'm like, hey, remember that one scene with that one actor from 30 plus years ago? And I hear this defeated sigh, and and I just hear like so I've come to call my way of remembering things the Rolodex
Oh yeah, yeah.
because it just kind of spools up and brings out whatever note card.
Uh-huh.
And so I just hear Lady in this just defeated tone, just not all of us have the Rolodex, Fresman. And I wasn't even mad. I'm like, oh, you're right. Oh.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Granted, whenever I hear somebody else's Rolodex, I have that horrified moment of like, is this what it's like talking to me?
Yeah. That's funny.
Now, question for you: what do you have in your Rolodex?
What I have in my Rolodex. Hmm. Gosh. Ah. Uh, a lot of movies, a lot of folklore, obviously a lot of supernatural investigation stuff. Um, yeah, I think that about covers it. Mystery stories. Gosh.
Do you have a favorite film?
Uh, oh my goodness, that's a tough one. That's a tough
All
one.
all time favorite.
All time favorite. Um, Probably the Lord of the Rings series. I That's probably cheating, but um, no, I read those as a kid, and I was so excited when they came out, and I was really happy with what Peter Jackson did with them. So yeah, probably that. I spent a number of years on the IMDb message boards for the various Lord of the Rings board, and was part of that community, and that was a lot of fun over the years. I'm still friends with them on other social media platforms now that IMDb took that away. But yeah, yeah, I got some good 20-year friendships out of that. Um,
Nice.
yeah, yeah. Of course, I grew up with Star Wars, and I loved those too. And my kids loved the Harry Potter movies, and those were awesome as well. But yeah, um, Casablanca is a marvelous film. If I had to pick, if you said, the series didn't work, I might have gone with that. That's a fun one, but fun one. I guess it's not, but it's a good film.
Well, well, you mentioned 20-year friendships off of the Lord of the Rings films. I'm like, it hasn't been that long, has it? And I look and it's absolutely been 20 years.
It's absolutely been 20 years. Yep.
Ah.
Kills
Uh,
me.
I I've been running into that a lot. It's like, oh, like one of my favorite video games came out in '98,
Oh yeah.
and and so it's like, oh yeah, that really good game from 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, I get that too. I get that too. It's like there were so many games I loved on the PlayStation 3. Um like Alice the Madness Continues by American McGee.
mm, yep.
That was so fun. And, playing the Assassin's Creed games, and oh, it was right. It was right on the tip of my tongue. What is it? It's not Doom.
Oh,
Well, Doom is good. I remember playing the first Doom, if that tells you how old I am.
what?
But oh gosh, what is it called? Diablo.
Ah,
I
yeah.
loved playing Diablo on the PS3. Of course, our PS3 broke. We have a PS4, but you can't get some of those on that. But yeah, and I have no idea how old all of those are, but yeah, time's just flies by, it seems.
Well, fun fact for you: American McGee, the guy who worked on the Alice games,
Uh-huh.
also did level design for Doom.
Oh, did he really?
Hmm.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. He's working on a new Alice game. I'm subscribed to
Ooh.
him on YouTube, and he'll, show character designs and all that. It's fun. But yeah, I wish he'd put out a lot more because that was such a fun game. I really love um, steampunk and Victorian stuff,
Mm.
and Gothic Victorian stuff, which I guess that more falls into. But there was plenty of steampunk in it too. Yeah.
Well, I like how specifically for Madness Returns how sort of sickly everybody looked.
Yes. Uh huh.
It's almost like a gross version of like a Tim Burton design,
Right. 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 Right.
which
Kind
I'm totally sold on.
of. Exactly. Exactly. It was very scene, as my daughter calls it. But yeah,
Scene.
scene. She was a scene kid way back in the day. But yeah.
Did she have the feathered hair and all that?
Oh yes, yes, and the
Oh,
fingerless gloves, and they were purple and black, and she loved Tim Burton, the whole thing. She's still in love with Johnny Depp, even though he's older than I am. So. Sorry about.
hello,
Oh, there you are.
hello.
Yep, there you are. Sorry about that.
Well, you were so you were describing your daughter being in love with Johnny Depp, and I was before we cut out, I was gonna say she's probably still in love with like the Edward Scissorhands version of him.
Well, kind of. She still likes Jack Sparrow, and she's adamantly refused to watch any Pirates of the Caribbean movie that he's not in. She refuses to see any new ones they do without him. So we'll see, we'll see. But yeah, she's been following the trial very closely.
Yeah, I, I've been sort of just kind of seeing whatever pops up on Twitter once in a while.
Right, right. That's me too. Just the good bits they bring out.
Yep, just the highlights.
Right. Oh,
Oh,
it's entertaining. It's less depressing than watching about the war in Ukraine. So,
yep. Well, yeah, I personally I try to avoid my best to watch like cable news
uh-huh. Yeah.
because it's always bad news.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The same here. And okay, I don't want to get into politics, but I think
Yep.
that every single news station has ulterior motives on both parties are corrupt, and that's all I'll say. But yeah. So,
It's just I what there's a term that I'm trying to find, and I'm not a centrist.
uh-huh.
I'm a stay out of it. Like I just don't, and unless everything's burning down, don't tell me.
Right, right. And I've gotten involved a number of years I've been involved. And at this point, I'm just so jaded
Hmm.
that I just don't want to hear anything. So,
Well,
yeah,
it's just so exhausting, you know.
it really is. It really is. And it's so depressing in a depressing world already. And you feel so helpless. You feel so
Hmm.
helpless. We have crappy health care and we can't get anything done about it. And,
Mm.
you know, just just the whole thing. Yeah.
And,
So I try
and
to
then
avoid it, but I don't always do so good.
and then usually when you ask about it, you get like a weird answer of like, "Well, just don't get sick."
Yeah. Right.
It's like, sure, because it's that simple.
It's that simple. Well, if you were working and had insurance, I have insurance and it's
And they
still
still don't
costing
cover
me.
it.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
man.
So,
Like, yeah, it's all bad.
yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. It's so depressing.
Yep.
So, anyway,
I say we certainly reached a high note, haven't
yeah,
we?
right,
I
right.
oh my goodness. I oh, well, like it's one of those things where it's almost comedic timing
Mhm.
that any time I'm like, you know what, I should probably take a look at what's going on in the world. Maybe it'll help to be more well informed. And then the first thing I find is like 15 people died in bus crash. I'm like, well, I'm done for the day.
Right, right. Another mass shooting. Oh, wow. We
Yep.
haven't had that for 2 days. Yeah. It's so
Damn it! And then
depressing.
you leave.
Yep, yep. I think I'll go turn everything off and go live in a you know,
Yep.
Victorian world and just pretend the real life doesn't exist.
Well, I've considered there. I had a plan from years ago that I'm still considering following through on, which is so I live about half an hour from a mountain,
Uh-huh.
like an honest to goodness snowy mountain.
Uh-huh.
And I thought about selling off most of my possessions and buying a cabin up there,
Oh yeah.
and then just becoming like the local legends of like there's just a guy in the woods out there.
Right, right. The creepy old
Oh
hermit.
yeah, there's a masked man that wanders down into town, buys groceries, and then wanders back into the forest.
Right, right. Yeah, that's I've wanted to build hobbit houses and just a little tiny, community with my family and friends and just out I live in the mountains. I live in a valley and there's just go get someplace and just forget about all this crap. Yeah.
Well, I've what was it? I if I could choose my preferred home, I'd like to live in the cabin from Evil Dead.
Oh, really?
Minus the Deadites,
Yeah,
but
right.
but but I honestly love the layout of that house
Yeah, yeah. That's
because it has two bedrooms and a one big bathroom and then like a hallway that goes straight like through the house out the back.
uh-huh. The old shotgun shack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah, yeah. That's I waffle between wanting a tiny home up in the mountain and having a great big castle so I can have everybody I love living in the same place. It depends on how much I'm annoyed that day, I think.
Everybody out of my castle.
That's right. Get out of my castle right now.
I'm taking a journey to my cabin.
That's right.
Well, I love like cyberpunk aesthetics when it comes to like apartments.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And there's one I found. Have you ever heard of the game Observer? It takes place in this like kind of dilapidated, almost like a slum of an apartment building,
Yeah.
like poorly upkept, clearly not regulated. Nobody's checking on this place.
Right.
But there is and I'll have to go try to find footage of it someday because I have the game, but I have yet to go back and play it. But down in like the bottom floor is like the basement of that building. There's a one room apartment, like a studio, that is like the perfect setup for somebody like me.
Oh really?
Yeah, because they have this really nice like computer desk, and then in front of the computer desk is a queen size bed, and then at the foot of the bed is a TV.
Oh wow.
And then like the around the walls is like one long counter with like a kitchenette and a sink and everything.
Uh-huh.
And it looks so cozy.
Oh. That's awesome. That's awesome. There was sorry, my son is in the other room being loud. Um There is a really cool cyberpunk movie. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Hotel Artemis.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
That's a cool one. And just that big old hotel, you know. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that
I
one.
I do like how there's sort of that basic outline of rules that everybody actually tries to follow.
Right, right.
It's like no killing inside the building. It's like, cool, I'll bring somebody to the roof then. If you try
Right.
to.
Right. Oh, and you know that's one I could see becoming a reality. You know, when we were talking about old science fiction, I could see us getting to that point there. So,
Hotels for hitmen.
yep, yep. You know, they probably exist already. We just don't know where they
I
are.
I I think the future I hope to avoid is have you ever seen a Repo the Genetic Opera?
No. Um, is it based on or related to Repo Man? Is it Repo Man, the one where they go and collect
With
organs you haven't paid for?
see it's a similar concept but less clinical.
Uh huh.
So it's not like, oh, sorry, we got to take your liver. It's like there's a guy that if you don't pay, he just hunts you down
Oh,
and takes whatever organ back.
oh man.
Yeah, and I hope we don't get to that point.
Right, right. You
Oh,
know,
Ooh,
my
my
insurance
insurance
doesn't
doesn't
cover it.
cover it. Uh
Uh-oh.
oh.
yeah, I can see that happening. I hate to say it. I hate to say it, but yeah.
I I like I can kind of see it happening, but not to the degree that they're gonna like come to your house and take your liver from you.
Right, right,
Like it'll probably like, here we have another one. We have a different liver that's worse than the one we gave you, but we're gonna have to switch it out.
right. Yeah, yeah. Or you end up having to bid in an auction to get an organ. You know, I could see that happening.
Oh. Like one of those was it the police lot auctions where you buy like a shot up car?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh. This liver functions perfectly except for the hole in it.
yeah. I can see that happening. Yeah. This liver comes from a 22-year-old who only drank on the weekends.
But he drank a lot on those weekends.
Right.
Oh.
Oh, funny, funny.
we 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 have this kidney from a quote unquote healthy. Sure. We checked it.
Here's kidneys from an 45-year-old grandma. She took it to church every Sunday. Like the car, you know?
Do you have the name of the
Oh,
donor? No, we found this one.
yep. So,
Side of the road.
you're back.
Well, it's weird because I can hear you perfectly.
I don't, you know, I have got such crappy internet. I'm going to switch it. It's just getting around to things.
Yeah.
Like going to the dentist or going to the doctor or something. You just put it off.
I could fix this with a phone call. Yeah, but I gotta call people and
You have to talk to somebody. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
exactly.
Well, like
We
we had our router go out here for about a week,
Oh,
and we put off calling an actual technician to come down and fix it,
uh-huh.
and the entire thing literally took 20 minutes. He showed up and he goes, "Here's your new router." We plugged it in. He plugged some stuff in outside and he goes, "And it's fixed. Bye." And then just left. And we're like, "How much do we owe you?" He's like, "Oh, it's free."
Oh, nice.
And we're like, okay. Guess have a good one."
Great. That's always
Perfect.
nice. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I'm going to have to call it quits here.
Well,
fine.
fine. No. well, well, with that, we'll call this interview to a close, Madam Raven. It has been an absolute blast having you on.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for asking me.
Yeah, and I have a two very quick questions to wrap this here interview up.
Okay.
One would be, do you have a video that you're particularly fond of that you would like in the description of this here video?
Good question. There's two that I really do like. One is Murder Castle. That was an old radio play, and it has Dr. Creepin playing the part of basically H.H. Holmes. And that one I really liked. And one that's not very scary at all, but I still am very happy with how it turned out, is The Happy Prince. So,
The Happy
The
Prince?
Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde. It was a Christmas story.
Mm.
But then again, if this comes out after probably tomorrow, then maybe my newest one that I'm doing, the Neil Gaiman one.
Mm. Well, and our last question of the day, which would be, are you open to coming back as a return guest at some point?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This has been a
Fantastic.
blast.
Nice. Well, thank you again for coming on. This has been absolutely delightful, even with the technological issues that we've both faced here today.
Right.
But thank you, Madam Raven, and thank you, party people at home, for sticking around to the end. Please go check out Madam Raven's links to her channel, Twitter, and subsequent videos that were mentioned here will be in the description below. And with that, this has been Demasked. My name is Fresman, and I will see all of you next time.